come in here to dwell.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
My daddy was a miner and I'm a miner's son, and I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man?
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Don't scab for the bosses, don't listen to their lies. Us poor folks haven't got a chance unless we organize.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Civil rights, the fight for peace, social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, gender justice. I was raised in a family that believed in social activism and that we needed to make the world better. I was also raised in a family that believed in encouraging art and in an art family. Like my father was not only an architect, but he was an artist. Early on, when I was about 5 or 6, I remember asking my mother to play a record album where I liked the cover. I think it was Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie and some others. And the song, one of the songs that moved me, that caught my attention was Which Side Are You On? The Florence Reese song about the struggle of the Harlan County coal miners fighting for a union. I went to Brooklyn College, majored in art, and one of my early good photographs is a no war over Cuba photograph in the Cuban Missile Crisis at the UN, a demonstration, 1962, October. And before that, before I picked up a camera, I was involved in picketing Woolworth in support of the Southern freedom struggles, where they picketed Woolworth and tried to sit in Woolworth. 1955, Emmett Till was assassinated or lynched. He was a few months older than me. I was going to be 13 in September. And then Rosa Parks in the Montgomery bus boycott. She was like a hero in the culture that I was existing in. You had the Family of Man exhibition of photographs and book produced by Edward Steichen at the Museum of Modern Art. I remember seeing even some photographs from the coal fields, stuff that related to people's lives and struggles, and also the way people lived, birth, death, marriage, love, sex. All of that was in the Family of Man, and that moved me. Becoming that kind of photographer started at Brooklyn College while I was an art student in the photography course. And why? I had a teacher that was open to that, and then when I started doing stuff like that, encouraged it. The teacher was Walter Rosenblum, who had been one of the last main big leaders in the Photo League. But then I graduated Brooklyn College and I photographed the school boycott. That was like something I focused. There was a big school boycott for integrated quality education in New York City. So there was a big uprising to have community control in the Black and Latino communities so that they could try to run their own schools. More than 460,000 students stayed out of school. They have 1 million students in the system. So, and I taught inner city communities in Brooklyn and Fort Greene, and then in Brownsville, then in Ocean Hill, Brownsville. But then I also was into photographing life in some of the inner city communities, where my students were coming from or where I was teaching, just exploring life. Lower East Side, where all the immigrants came, and where my mother was raised. Just to say it's broader than just civil rights, but talk about social justice, then it all plays together. I photographed at a cleanup, a neighborhood cleanup on Jefferson Avenue in the heart of Bedford-Stuyvesant. It was sponsored by the Brooklyn College NAACP and the Brooklyn Branch Youth Group of the NAACP. And a friend of mine was involved with that, organizing it, and invited me to photograph it. Then after photographing the cleanup and people hanging around that, I walked down the block, and that was sort of over. Walked down the block, in the middle of the block, I meet a family, chatting with them, photographing them. And while I'm doing that, all of a sudden an old lady comes down the block carrying a shopping bag. And I'm thinking Rosa Parks, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, and also I'm thinking maybe she's coming home from working all week long or cleaning someone's house or whatever. And she sits down on the stoop right next to where I am. This is in the summer. And it has so much history and meaning to me, and there's the old brownstone as a background. I take a picture of her quickly, snap 1 and 2, and then I go to approach her, see about talking and maybe taking more close-up, and she picks up her shopping bag and goes in. But that's part of social justice tradition. I mean, that has a lot of meaning. So it's the same thing with Appalachia. Like I got the strikes and the demonstrations, but the photographs in people's homes, that tells more intensely the whole life of the people. They tell so much just with one photograph, and they get into people's lives, and that's what I try to do.
My name is Roger May. I'm a photographer and writer from Mingo County, West Virginia. I live in Charleston now. Probably about 8 or 10 years ago, I was just sort of researching photographs online of coal mining in Appalachia, and I came across this photograph of Toby Moore online. And when I read some of the information about the photograph, I found that he worked for the same mine outfit that my grandfather worked for, and I thought that was an interesting connection, so I reached out to Builder via email, introduced myself, and asked him if he maybe knew my grandfather, or maybe he had other photographs from that era that maybe my grandfather might be in. And so we just sort of struck up a email friendship at that point, and then I started writing more about Appalachia and Appalachian photography, and he was always available to talk and sort of what I think is a really important example of how work could be and should be made in Appalachia.
When I first met Builder, I don't remember how I first met him, but he got in touch with me and he wanted to go underground. And I was a coal mine inspector, and I still am a coal mine inspector, I still work. And we got permission to take him underground, and I took him to several different mines. He wanted to see mining in progress. So I took him to a mine where they were pillaring, like removing the final pillars, and we observed them in timbering and stuff like that.
He sat and talked to my dad and brother, I think for almost 6 hours. They sat and just talked about a lot of things. I didn't want to be in the photograph. I came walking through and they were talking, and I turned to go back out, and that's when Builder asked me if I would be in a photo for him. And I said, no, that's okay, never mind. He said, no, he said, just need you to stand in the doorway. I'm not gonna put the camera in your face. Just stand there and look out the window. That's all I want you to do. So I said, as long as I don't have to, you don't have to get the camera all close. So I stood, and that was my mom and dad's bedroom. He's not overbearing, or he lets you tell your story the way you want it told, not trying to put a finish on it or change it or anything. And that's one thing about the coal miners. A lot of people didn't understand the coal miners, and they were not respected like they should have been.
I was the first state woman inspector, and I've been the only woman until I think last year they hired another woman. But all that time is just me. It makes me proud, because I enjoy what I do. I still inspect, but right now I'm the assistant inspector at large, so I'm responsible for training inspectors and doing stuff like that. But I really enjoy coal mining. In my area, we still have about 23 working production mines, so it will never be like it was, but at least you still have jobs for some people, and coal miners make a decent living, a very good living.
My name is Maria Gano, and I'm from southern West Virginia, and I work towards ending mountaintop removal, and I've done that work for 25 years. Mountaintop removal basically moved into my backyard in 2001, and because of it I was getting covered by dust, and the flooding was just atrocious, beyond anything I'd ever seen. And I became active because of what the coal company's done to me. I feel like that Mr. Levy's important work has been very valuable to what we've done over the years, and I feel like without his work there was a lot of our history that would not have been captured. So I value his work greatly.
One of the interesting things about Builder's work is he came to the region at a time when like war on poverty photographers were here, and they were making a very different kind of picture here, and they were focused more on abject poverty and that sort of thing. He came from away from here, like a lot of those photographers did, and managed to see something beyond that. I mean, he didn't shy away from poverty, he didn't shy away from hard times, but he was able to sort of show a broader view of humanity that people have been able to connect with, and the people that he connected with sort of gave him reason to return so many times. And I think he fell in love with the place, and the people fell in love with him, and as evidenced by the turnout here today.
The one of Lucius Thompson and his grandchildren on the porch, he was a retired miner, and he'd also worked road work and done other things. I met him the night before. He was chairing the meeting of the Kentuckians for the Commonwealth. And I got there late, the meeting had started already. I had my camera equipment and everything, and photographed a lot at the meeting, but the photographs weren't very good. But I met these people, and as soon as I saw Lucius Thompson, I knew this guy, I gotta photograph him at his home place, and it's got to be good.
I met Builder Levy in the early 2000s, and he was coming back to revisit after his initial tour in the 60s and 70s. And he wanted to know what was going on with the coal mining today.
When I came back after being out of the coal fields, the last time I had been in the coal fields was 1982. Then there was I made a book in '89 and had exhibitions and traveled. I didn't take any new pictures until 2002 in Appalachia. So I didn't know, was I going to be able to get anything? And things changed radically since I was back.
So we took him on a tour of the mountaintop removal site. We flew him in a plane to show him what was going on.
Honestly, it was much harder for me. I'm not an aerial photographer, but I became one.
I had reviewed his first book before I had met him, so I knew immediately that his work was a very respectful work to our people. I knew that we needed his help in order to make people aware of the history of coal in the state of West Virginia. His work has been invaluable. I feel like that we're at a point now, the coal industry, a lot of the coal industry operators have filed bankruptcy. It's left our communities probably poorer than ever. But at the same time, I see an opportunity out of that. We have an opportunity now to supply jobs to our area by cleaning up after the coal industry. The coal industry has operated here for 150 years, and it's time that we employ the people in cleaning up after the industry.
We
shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand. We'll walk hand in hand someday. Oh, deep in my heart,
I was young then. 18, and I'll be 66 this year, so you know.
I've never been ashamed to say that my father was a coal miner. Never been ashamed. I have something to pass on to my daughters. It means a lot to them. They have very fond memories of my mom and dad's house and staying there in Stokesbury at mom and dad's house, and both of my parents are gone now. So it really means a lot to them also.
I really enjoy what I do. And the people, they're great. Very respectful. They're very helpful. And I've never had any problems.
Anyone can vote. Anyone. Voting is very important. Don't ever underestimate the power of your vote. But I think more than that, I think teaching and learning is very important. Teaching the next generation of our mistakes of the past. The things we have coming up, I feel like it's just as exciting. I feel like that to see the people of West Virginia step up to their role of cleaning up their state and rebuilding after the coal industry, I think you're about to see what West Virginians are really all about.
It shows that photography is not just a one-way street, because the people that are on the receiving end of that gaze with a camera, they realize that he sees them as more than just an opportunity or just as a photograph, and that's why they've invited him back so often. That's why we come out anytime that we know he's in town.
We are not afraid. We are not afraid.